Hi, I'm Anthony Dreesen, filling in for Pastor Nat this week on Win the Day. Today, I'll be taking the time to talk about the willing rejection of Christ during his incarnation. I want to start today with an illustration of a time where someone did something that they knew they were not supposed to do, but they did it anyway. Recently, one of my kids was playing a game on their computer. I voiced my correction to them, telling them that it wasn't the time to play that game. And not a moment later, they opened a different game and said that I only told them they couldn't play the first one. This was an obvious case of willful ignorance. As we look at our text in John 15, starting in verse 22, Jesus continues his series of rhetorical if statements with his disciples. Let's read our text together. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father as well. If I had not done among them the works no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. As it is, they have seen, and yet they have hated both me and my Father. But this is to fulfill what is written in their law. They hated me without reason. This passage is a continuation of if statements going back to verse 18, where Jesus says, "If the world hated you, keep in mind that it hated me first." We also see Jesus' purpose statement a few verses ahead of this in chapter 16, verse 1. He says, "All this I have told you so that you will not fall away." In our passage, in verse 22, Jesus is describing the people who saw his works and rejected him. He's not speaking of some sort of innocence that people had before his arrival, but rather the rejection and willful ignorance that the people of the world who saw Jesus in front of them displayed in that rejection. Jesus explains this to the disciples, that these unbelieving people that have rejected him and therefore have rejected God as well. The sin he is discussing then is a specific sin of rejection, not the general sense of sin that the unbeliever would be and is still guilty of today, whether Jesus had come or not. For us today, let us be encouraged by Jesus' encouragement to the disciples to hold on to the faith that we have, that he will abide in us as we abide in him, and that when someone rejects the message, it should not discourage us from further sharing with those around us who need to hear the good news of Jesus. My kid, who displayed that willful ignorance in playing computer games when he wasn't supposed to, was making a silly joke, and he responded well afterwards. The people Jesus is discussing here have willfully rejected his direct instruction in front of them, and many of them likely didn't have the same proper response. Jesus came with a specific message to submit to his lordship and trust in his salvation to follow him in life. May we be believers who do just that and live lives worthy of that calling.